reason this is locked. Oh my God. Let's go. I can't get help.
What are you doing? Will I see you again? When will I see you?
I just don't want you pointing at me.
Hello, welcome to the Literary License Podcast, and today we'll be discussing The Road, written by Cormac McCarthy, and the classic film. And today with us we have my co-host, John Wilson.
Hello.
And Cassandra Swan is our special co-host today. How are you doing today?
Hello, thank you for having me.
And I thought before we get started, just so you can get a view of our co-host, our special co-host, Cassandra, we thought we'd do a little mini question and answer period with her, just so you can get to know her a little bit before we carry on. So, Cassandra, just to let everyone know that Cassandra has a new book called The Alibi Room, which is available through Amazon and Lulu, and we will be posting those websites later on our web pages, which will be Facebook and Twitter, and will also be on our Literary License website, which will give you those addresses later on. So, Cassandra, poetry is your passion that you really excel at. What draws you to this medium?
I think, to be honest, this medium, I was just born with it in me. It would be like trying to function without a heart if I didn't have poetry in my life. That's probably the best way I can describe it. It has been with me right from very, very early childhood.
That's lovely. What are some of your favorite poets, and how have they inspired you?
Well, two. I'll give you one female and one male. My female poet I've had most connectedness with and relate to her work best is Sylvia Plath. And I mean, she's a very, very popular poet. But she's just, I don't know, there's just something about what she writes and how she writes it. I've only got to listen to her voice and it inspires me to write. So we can thank Sylvia. And the male poet is Vladimir Mayakovsky. His work speaks to me very profoundly, and he's had quite a huge impact on my writing process, my poetry, and my life, really. And I've been invited to perform at the State Mayakovsky Museum next year. So I'm exploring something with this Mayakovsky work.
Excellent. I can hardly wait to see how that pans out for you. The Alibi Room is an amazing anthology of your work. How did you come up with the concept, and what led you to release all your award-winning poetry into one volume?
Well, there's one big person who can answer that question probably better than me. I was given the opportunity to, by Keith, and I decided to go for it. My work has been reasonably well read, but I have never felt that I wanted to put it totally out into the world. I've been quite guarded about it at the same time. It's extremely personal. I think people will probably enjoy it once they read it. It's more like an acquired taste, I would say. It's different to ordinary poetry. I don't run with lyrical dictatorship or having to do things in certain ways. I write the way I write, and I'm sure that there will be people who enjoy it, and I'm very, very pleased that it's out in the world now. After all my reservations, I'm happy about it.
Well, me and other artists are very thankful for that too, so thank you for sharing your work.
Thank you.
You have explored different avenues of your poetry, including setting it to music and using visuals to add extra dimension and layers to your work. How did that come about?
Well, I started by thinking, instead of churning out lots and lots of poems, I'd like to say what I want to say in a powerful way, and then embrace it and look at the different ways you could put that out into the world. And one of those ways I thought was going to a recording studio and record the lyrics, and on a couple of the tracks I decided to bring in some sound effects, and the two tracks that I put the sound effects in with really seemed to work for me. I felt that they were so atmospheric that I wanted to explore this more. So I started to connect with DJs and composers and so on. And really, I think it was because people warmed to the work so much, and they were asking me if I would allow them to work with my lyrics. So I think it started off in a very basic way in a recording studio, just my lyrics. And then exploring has brought me to a completely new level, because I have now epic poems that have been recorded, and I even have one with featuring Mayakovsky. So the recordings have been a different avenue, but I like doing them. I really enjoy them, and I like the idea people like working with my lyrics, and I enjoy their interpretations as well as collaborate, in as much as I do say what I'd like, which helps them and gives them a starting block, I suppose. So, yeah, the recordings have gone well, and I'm very, very pleased with them. Andrei Kiriev, he's the Russian composer that I'm working with, and he really does seem to interpret my work very, very well. It's sort of haunting and beguiling the atmosphere he sets with my lyrics. So I'm sure I'll be doing some more work with him.
I mean, I've seen the videos that you've done for Hammer and the pocket-sized Wreath, which are very amazing, and they're found on YouTube. And for our listeners out there, we will actually give you the link to those to her YouTube channel, so you can actually see those videos for yourself and see her poetry in motion. Well, as poetry is all around us, when you listen to music, are lyrics something that is important to you? And if so, what are some of your favorite lyrics and songs?
I'm a strange kettle of fish. I like music, but I don't live with it. I pretty much live in silence, and that's because I like to be in a meditative state that's connected to my higher consciousness, because that is where a lot of my creativity comes from. So as much as I like music and as much as I like lyrics, I've chosen to live without them so that I can have a very, very clear current coming through me. So whatever I decide to write is going to be substantial. So I suppose you could say I've made a lot of sacrifices, and There's one song that comes to mind straight away, actually. I will say this is Sinead O'Connor, Troy. I love that song.
I love that's from her first album. That's a fantastic album.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
wonderful.
agree. So can you tell us what you have planned for the future?
A lot. Yeah, it's an awful lot. I think I'm sort of diversifying. I'm trying to get involved with writing scripts and started a stage play script. I'm working with somebody on the first draft of a feature film script. I'm learning Russian. I'm studying exorcism and demonology. And I'll be writing more poetry. So I've also been invited to be assistant editor of a literary journal as well. So I think my work there's been an osmosis, a definite osmosis. It's happened over a 17-year period, but it's leading me into other arenas. So I'm sure there'll be more from me.
I can't wait to see what you come out with. So, Cassandra, you will be joining us for our episode of The Road and discussing the road with us later?
Absolutely. Thank you, Keith.
No problem at all. Well, we thought, John and I, after some discussion, we thought that we would share some of our personal experiences based on the episode that we're doing. And today we thought we would share some of our experiences on probably, some stories about a memorable road trip. So, John, would you want to start us off on a memorable road trip that you have had?
Sure, I've had many. So me and my family, my mom, my dad, and my 3 older brothers travel every other summer across the great U.S. of A in a van. I want to say, I think it's a Dodge Ram, somewhere 84, 85, maybe I'll have to ask my brothers. But we would travel from California to Missouri, and we would stop off at various places and see, we were going to obviously see my grandparents, but we would see my cousins in Oklahoma. But I think I have so many different memories from those different experiences because I was able to explore the country in a way that I think as a kid I didn't really appreciate, but now as an adult I do, because I was given so many unique experiences to kind of dip into different states and be able to kind of explore things. But yeah, can you imagine just having a family crammed into a van during the summer and it being hot in certain areas, the comedy that would ensue just in those sort of experiences.
What about yourself, Cassandra? Do you have any memorable stories about any on road trips?
One springs to mind, yes. In the 90s, I decided to travel to East Africa, Kenya. I've always been very interested in the culture. And I went there on a holiday and landed up becoming involved with the Maasai tribe. I abandoned the 5-star hotel and decided that I wanted to explore from a warrior's point of view. So what I found was there were these wonderful multicoloured painted buses, and on them you would always hear music. And for some reason I just gravitated towards them, and a lot of the time I didn't even know where I was going. I just wanted to be on these buses and listening to this music, and used to dance down the aisles. And I had a warrior with me. He was sort of travelling with me. And I gave him my Sony Walkman at the time. He had a tape with Maasai music on. He was listening to that, and I was just dancing along in the bus. Yeah, great fun.
Well, one of my memorable road trips is when I was living in Colorado, working at a ski resort. In the spring, things closed down. So my ex, Donnie, Vicky, and my decided we'll travel around America. So we pick up Gary in Kansas, and then after about 3 weeks, we started getting on each other's nerves pretty much, which is pretty much what happens when you're in a Chrysler LeBaron convertible. We're all kind of crammed in, and I did a lot of the driving because I have a left foot, so therefore I could get us to point A to point B quite easily. Well, we got up really early after being in Washington, D.C., and decided to go to Six Flags that morning. So we spent the whole day at Six Flags and left when it closed. And then I came up with this bright idea that we should go to Florida and we could sleep on the beach. So we decided we're going to drive all night. Well, so as we're going from Six Flags down to Florida, the Atlantic Ocean is on our left-hand side as we're driving through. We hit Virginia. And basically, I'm going 90 miles per hour in a 30-mile-per-hour zone, and we get pulled over by the cops. And everyone's asleep in the car. It's about 4 o'clock in the morning, and this cop shows up, all very shiny, Thelma and Louise-like, with his nicely pressed cop uniform, the gun all shiny, the badge shiny. And he pulls us over, and the first thing he asks me, he goes, "Why are you going so fast?" And I said, "We're going to the beach," even though the beach is right there. And he goes, "Oh." So anyway, everyone has to get up out of the car and everything like that. And there's 4 people, and the Chrysler LeBaron trunk wasn't very big. So basically all the papers for the car, the insurance and everything was in this pink filing box. And so basically I have to wake everyone up. And meanwhile, Donnie, my ex, is glaring at me because, I got caught speeding sort of thing. So we had to take everything out of the car. And Vicky had a collection of stuffed animals that she was picking up along the way. So we had all these stuffed animals and all the bags. And Donnie's bitching at me the whole time, going, "I can't believe you got caught," yelling at me, screaming at me. Well, not really bitching. And then basically to the cop, and hand everything to the cop and stuff like this. He looks at me and he goes, "What beach are you going to?" I said, "One in Florida." And he sits there and goes, "There's a beach next to us." I go, "Oh, I didn't see that." He goes, "Do I need to test you for drugs?" And I said, "Not this time, because I'm completely sober." But maybe you tested you an hour or two ago. It might have proved positive, but I promise you there's no drugs in my system at this time. And he goes, "I'll tell you what." He goes, "I'm going to give you a $30 ticket, and I'll let you go on your way." And that was pretty much my road trip story. Long and winding.
That's fun.
That's great.
So as you know, if you're just tuning in, you can see that we're covering the road. So, John, this is your choice. Why did you decide for us to cover the road?
There are a couple reasons I chose this particular novel. First is because Cormac McCarthy has such a unique writing style, which, much like The Landscape of the Road, is constructed with minimal information. The dialogue is sparse. There are limited character descriptors and interaction. The story is just stripped down to the basics, which to me is just such an eloquence of a story. I should also say now, as usual, spoiler alert, we will be discussing plot points, some not for the faint of heart. And secondly, I'm a big fan of post-apocalyptic dramas because of the struggle that's involved in surviving in an often barren world where people have to make hard choices in order to keep on keeping on. So I've just been a big fan of those types of stories.
And Cassandra, how did you feel about the book itself? What do you like? How did you feel about covering the road?
Well, I didn't know much about it at all, and the book, it sounded interesting, but I'm really not sure about it. I must be honest. Having read the book and seen the film, I feel that the film works better for me personally. But John obviously knows and is more of a specialist on this side. So, what he will be able to discuss will probably be more than myself. But yeah, I'd put it this way. I wouldn't have chosen to read the book. I definitely wouldn't have chosen it, but I'm glad that I have. And it was quite enlightening.
For me with the road, when we're coming out with our episodes for the podcast and we're putting together what we're going to do, I had to sit there and say when the road came up, and at that time Mandy was more of a active member at that time, which she's no longer with us. She's not dead; she's no longer with us. And
she wasn't captured by the people in the road.
I did roll my eyes at it, and I thought, and I was moaning and not moaning and groaning outwardly, but more inwardly. But I have to sit there and say, now that I've read the book and seen the film, I'm glad I read it, sort of thing. So as we go into the road, we're going to start discussing the book, and I'm going to give you a brief synopsis about The Road by Cormac McCarthy. A father and his young son walk alone through burned America, heading slowly for the coast. Nothing moves in the ravaged landscape saves the ash of the wind, They have nothing but a pistol to defend themselves against the men who stalk the road, the clothes they are wearing, a cart of scavenged food, and each other. So, Cassandra, to start discussion from the book, I guess best thing to do is let us know what you think about the road and about the book itself.
Okay. I found it quite hard going, actually. I must be honest. I felt it was peculiar that we were just launched into the darkness of this post-apocalyptic situation and scenario, and we didn't even know how it had come about. I felt that was quite strange, because it was almost like you're in an ordinary situation one minute, and then wallop, you're right into this darkness, and you don't know how you've got there. So that I found a bit confusing, and I felt that my mind was concerning myself too much with how this had happened as opposed to the book itself. I found the dialogue particularly boring, I must be honest. I didn't feel, I felt there should be more philosophy or more wisdom coming through. I felt that and not having a name, the child has no name, of course, and the father, it's just Papa. It all seemed very peculiar, to be honest.
I found the book kind of like a biblical story to a weird extent. It's almost like, you have this, you got the father who's basically like mankind, I suppose, judging the good with the bad, though he never sees any good in anybody, really. Everyone's a thing. And then you got the boy who's basically like Jesus Christ or the Anne Frank syndrome, everyone's good sort of thing. But we knew what happened to Anne Frank, so obviously that's not a good way to be. But the whole thing is like, in the book, which is, we'll get to the movie later, but he's got blonde hair and he's got blonde curls, and I imagine him to be quite angelic looking, and it's almost like, if you take it from a biblical side of things, it's almost like Christ's missing years. How from the Bible you got Christ. He's born, and then you don't see anything of him until he's 32 years old. So it's almost like the missing years, and he's seen good, and the boy is, you don't really know the age of the boy. And I'm always, when I read the book, I assumed the boy was about 5 or 6 years old, only because he's either 5 or 6 or mentally retarded. I wasn't quite sure, because there's a naivety about him. But the thing is that to have that naivety, he was born into that situation. So I don't know if he would be that naive unless he was very young. So and that's what I gathered from it.
Yeah. I agree with that. I understand where you're coming from. I felt that the boy was, he's already had an experience where his mother has committed suicide. So, this is a traumatized child. And I really did feel that he could have been more of a quirky character because of the background and the things that had happened to him. You wouldn't think that he would be just this bland child who just says, okay, yes, okay. The father was the same. And I thought, well, look, these people have been through hell and high water. Shouldn't there be more of a volatile connection between them? Would there not be frustration and anger, distress? The dialogue just didn't seem to go with the story. That's how I personally felt about it.
Yeah, I think it's part of it is the kid was sort of born into this incident that it happens. I think in the movie they kind of show that, like, it's like he's literally birthed into that period. And so I consider that why he's not as, eloquent in speech or talking, because like he's homeschooled basically. His parents are the ones who homeschooled him. And I think a lot of that, the father was always trying to, we're going to survive, we're going to survive, we're going to survive. The mother maybe started out that way and then started to deteriorate and started to kind of exude what the story is about. Why are we surviving, right? Why are we here? Why are we going to keep going? What's the point, right? And so when she leaves and then it's just him, and he takes his son out, and we don't really, again, because the information is so sparse, we don't know why he's actually taking his son away from there. We can assume that it's because he needs to get somewhere in a warmer climate, because in warmth maybe they can survive. But yeah, I think that sort of, I would say it's more innocence. Like the kid doesn't really know anything. Like he really just knows what his papa is teaching him, and the dad is trying to ensure that the son has a future, but doesn't know really what that is, and so he's just kind of like literally bouncing around trying to figure that out.
But it's kind of like an overprotective scenario. I mean, maybe because it's the only child. I don't know if it has anything to do with the way the plot was put together. But I would think that if this is real life, for instance, and let's say that I was going to have a child and that child's born into the situation, I think they would be a bit more street smart. I would, the thing is, I would prepare that child to be very, very street smart, because I mean, the father's very, very cautious about what's going on. And, we do have the flashbacks of the mother situation, which is interesting, though I do think they're a bit romanticized about the situation, which, the thing is, when, there is that thing that, this person's a total bitch, a total, I hate her. She's the most worst person in the world. That person dies, and all of a sudden they become this angelic messiah person that that happens to most people when they die. The memory becomes, you might have hated them in life, but later on you love them. Because, like, for instance, when I worked at this place, this woman I worked with, her name was Jane. Everyone hated her at work. This woman was just pure hatred. Everyone just hated her. She went home and she got raped and murdered in Ealing Broadway. And then the next day, the police came and told everyone. They offered counseling and everything like this. And then within a week, this woman was the most loved person of this whole company. And I was sat there going, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
Because everyone hated her. Yeah. It's like, you hated her the day before. Now she's dead. So you do have that romanticism going on after someone dies. So when you're going back through his memory, you're not quite sure exactly, in the book anyway, what's truthful there. But, going back to my point, I just think that, I would make sure that my son would have the capabilities and the tools to be able to survive in such a brutal world. And obviously, the way the father's portrayed him, he's very cautious of everybody. So, and the thing is, when we come into the story, basically, we're in the middle of the road, basically, in the travel. We don't know how long they were, what happened to them between when they left their house to where they are on the road, and what time period has passed. But he is very, very suspect of everyone and everything. So, I would imagine that something must have happened at that time period to make him that suspect, because if he stayed in his house, how would he really know what's going on in the outside world? Because I imagine that with no electricity, no news, no social media, no electronics whatsoever, you only know what's going on outside from what you experienced yourself. So when you have this, innocent boy saying Papa all the time and walking around like Mr. Innocence, I don't know. I just kind of wondering if it's a bit naive on the point of the author to have that portrayed in that matter. I think that if we had a bit more story, beforehand, or just, a couple of paragraphs, it might have made it a bit more easy to swallow why the boy is the way he is.
Yeah. Yes, I fully agree with that, Keith. It somehow was missing some ingredients that, if they'd have put them in, it would have made it better, personally, I feel. I didn't feel drawn into this book. When you pick up a good book and you just can't put it down, I just didn't have that with this book at all. There are some very lovely sort of poetic, metaphorical things that he uses in the process of writing it, which were pleasurable. But for some reason, the impact of the horrific situation they were in and this very basic, innocent conversation that they were having, it didn't seem to gel. It didn't bond for me. It didn't feel right. One felt one extreme and the other felt another. It just didn't seem to gel for me, unfortunately. I mean, it's a good book, and it won lots of awards, and I'm just thinking, well, hey, that's a possibility for the future as well, then.
Yeah, I think it's what's interesting about it is because, I mean, I was always sort of taught in writing, especially if you're writing short stories, to skim it down, get to the bone, not the meat, but the bone of the story. And this, that's, I think, why I think I do like it, is because I don't really need to know that much. I know that we are in this world. Why it happens, I think it kind of does mention at some point that it is a nuclear thing, like it's a nuclear winter, and that's what they're kind of stuck in perpetually. I think my biggest question was like, well, why are they keeping on? Why do they keep going? Because it's brought up a lot, like carrying the fire. We got to carry the fire. We got to, we have to keep going. And I question whether or not there was maybe a strong enough motivation for the father, because it'd be one thing if he was going towards a destination for a reason, but we really didn't know why he was going south and then points east and then points south again. It was kind of like a wandering compass, right? But I liked that it's really hard to have only a certain number of people within an entire story to keep it afloat, right? And to keep the moving going. It's the instances that happen to them that is sometimes the father's fault. He pulls this kid into these scenarios because he's obviously trying to get food, but it's those sort of instances, those instigators, that to me was like, wow, what would I do in that situation? Or like, oh, if I am starving, what does that feel like? What would that be like to really actually have to consider yourself, like, do I put a bullet in my head or do I put a bullet in my child? Like, and those are really morbid and twisted things to ever have to think about. And you kind of, because there's nothing around to distract you from that. There's no other players. We don't need to know like if his name was George or his name was Noah, it really wouldn't matter, because really it is a boy and his father who really are trying to get something and to try to survive. And I always said to myself, like, especially when it gets towards the end, you kind of wonder, is this kid going to be some sort of messiah or the hope that's going to carry things on? Because it's such a barren and sad and ashy world that they're in, and you want to have hope for them and you don't really know how. And then when it kind of ends that way, you're kind of going, okay, maybe there is hope. Maybe it is something that in each of us we need to sort of maintain a sense of hope when things feel hopeless.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with that, but I do think, I mean, Cormac McCarthy is known for his writing, and he is the man of the moment as far as any movie that's made out of his work is considered masterpieces, and he's a masterpiece of modern fiction. And his writing style. I mean, I don't mind his writing style. I did enjoy the Road. When I started reading it, I was like, oh, here we go. And then by the time I got into it, I did enjoy his writing and stuff like this. I do wonder, is he brilliant because he doesn't use quotation marks and uses long-winded sentences, or is he just lazy because he doesn't know about punctuation? You're kind of wondering. It's like, and because he's won like the Pulitzers and, and a bunch of other fiction prizes as well. I'm kind of wondering, like, like sometimes with art is considered, art because certain people say it's art, sort of thing. I mean, I did enjoy The Road. I don't know if I'd ever read it again, but I did find it an interesting read. As far as the characters are concerned in it, I did find, I assimilated more with the wife. I mean, I guess because if something like that happened, I don't know if I really want to survive. It's a bit like after a nuclear holocaust. When, I said if ever a nuclear bomb was going to hit, I would go out into the middle of the street, find out where it's going to hit, and just stand there with a fag in my mouth and wait for it to be lit. And
well, I mean, surviving
on the pavement. I mean, I'd be quite happy to survive that way. Then,
well, surviving that, and then it's like, and then they're cannibals. Okay. Well, let's really think about this.
Well, that was the other horrific thing. Cannibalism, really and truthfully, it's just a horrific thing to contemplate, and to know that was part of this journey and a real threat. on that journey, that was quite horrific. I did feel that was quite a horrific thought, to be presented with those things. It's almost beyond human comprehension, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people can we say, well, look, what happened to you when you thought you were going to be eaten? It's all very, very fictitious, isn't it? We know these things happen, but it's within that fiction that we try to learn from these things. I don't know. That wasn't very nice, but I must admit, I like the film much better than the book.
I think it's interesting too, because most of post-apocalyptic is usually it isn't that cannibalism, but it's zombie, right? So it's the undead who is the one, but how, and especially we'll get to that with the movie, how these people look like the undead, like they're quite literally just devoid of any sort of, okay, I can't do this. It's just kind of like, we're gonna eat you now, or we're gonna hack off your arm, or we're gonna just eat you right now. And it's sort of, it's more insidious in that way versus a brain, zombie that has no sort of consciousness that is just doing that.
I do think of the book. They did give the boy an age, and then that the boy was born. The thing is, you can mix up your timelines here, because the movie gives a little bit more than the book does. But I mean, if they gave an age to the boy, let's say the boy is 6, 8, 10, or whatever, that man has digressed into the situation for this many years, because you don't really know how old the boy is. There's no way to tell when exactly how long did it take man to decline to cannibalism and this fight for survival. And I have to sit there and say that even reading it, I mean, when humans are in extraordinary circumstances where they have to survive, I mean, cannibalism does tend to be through history something that man does lean back on. I mean, you have the survivors of Alive, that plane crash at the Andes Mountains, that soccer team back in the 70s, and then you have the Donner Party that that they will wander around in Colorado looking to find themselves in Denver, and then eventually, they all, one guy survived, and he survived by killing and eating his way to survival. So I guess hunger makes you do crazy things, I suppose. But I then again, because the book starts out the way it is, but how would you know that mankind has gone to cannibalism unless you've seen it for yourself? Because when you go into the book, the first sign of cannibalism, that there might be cannibalism, is when the truck breaks down and they're hiding in the woods, sort of thing, and the guy peeing in the forest, and then that situation happens. But that's sometimes I just think that if we had a little bit more precursor to the situation and how it declined, I think that it would give you a bit more understanding of, because everything's a bit too black and white at times, and I think that this story could use a lot more shades of gray to give it a bit more depth at times.
I agree, most definitely. There seemed to be something missing. I don't know. I just felt there were things missing that I would have liked to have explored a bit more, and that I feel the writer could have explored a bit more to really bring you into the story. And they just weren't there for me. Those things weren't there. So
there's a huge gap too, because there's like you said, we don't know how old the kid is, so that we know that the incident occurred right when he was born. And then from that point on, the kid, let's say if a kid's 7, 8 years there, that's 8 years a gap right there. Maybe he can write like a prequel called The Sidewalk or something, like literally that would be, like you said, because I think if you think about any sort of collapse, right? Let's say there's a technological collapse where everything just gave out. People will begin to riot and steal things, and then steal food, and then, so you have like that constant protection and try. Then you have people who will run away, who get invaded, so they have to try to escape. So there's all those things that will occur. But it would be interesting to see that first instance of, what are they doing to that family? Why are they taking them away? What's going on? And then oh shit, and they're eating them, and
well, as we'll get into the film later, I mean, the book, I mean, I mean, if we just take the book for what it is, you don't even know if he comes from an urban setting. Does he come from the country? Does he come from a town?
No.
Does he come from? So you don't really know where he's coming from. So, you know, I know the movie, the screenwriter took a bit of some liberties there.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, because even in the book, you don't know if that boy was born. He could have been born before the disaster happened, because in the book it doesn't tell you when he's born at all.
No.
You get the dramaticness that we'll discuss in the movie with the birth of the son, but the book doesn't give any of that information away. So I mean, the boy could have been born before it happened, or he might have been born, you know, afterwards. It doesn't really give you the details there.
Well, there is one scene in the book that they do replicate in the movie, which is him waking up to the sound, and then the wife's like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, She's like, "Why are you taking a bath?" He's like, "I'm not taking a bath." Mm-hmm. And it is because it almost, the way it's painted is pre-kid, because the kid's not there, so it's again an assumption that happens before.
Could have been in bed asleep.
Yeah. Yeah. But I want to say, because I feel like it said she was pregnant. I don't remember, because I feel like it did say something like she was pregnant, or she was, you know, they were both asleep, and then
Because I mean, I know the film flushes out a lot, and I saw the film last night. Finally sat down and watched it, and in the book, I mean, I didn't walk away with. I guess my problem with the book is that I kind of wish it had a bit more heart, a bit more emotion, a bit more.
Yes.
You know, I mean, the books that I quite enjoy, sometimes, I mean, some of the books, even though if they're badly written, if it's got a lot of heart or feeling in it, I can really get into it. I mean, one of my favorite authors is Fanny Flagg, because nothing happens in any of her books, but all her books take place in this one town, and it's like normally the town starts at, you know, like her last book starts in like the 1860s and it finishes up today. It's just there's people going on town. Nothing's happening to their lives, but because there's so much heart in it that you just feel that you love these people. And every time I close a Fanny Flagg book, I'm really depressed. It's not because people have died or anything like that. It's because I felt like I've lost a bunch of friends. And every time I pick up over books, I got all these emotions come flooding back. And it's just like living with people that you just get to know so well. And I have to sit there and say that even with the father's death, I wasn't that concerned about the boy. And I think that I should have felt really upset and felt, oh my God, what's going to happen to the boy? And I thought to myself, like, you know, well, you know, I was like, well, okay. And then, you know, then he gets, you know, then that, you know, the people show up, you know, what a great plot device is like father dies, boy goes walking down the beach, and 5 minutes later he
runs a whole family basically.
Great. But they never seen them, so you know, and that I found that kind of weird. It's like, you know, the father's like, "Are you following me? Are you following me?" to everyone that he meets. Meanwhile, you know, whether it's the old man or to the guy that he makes strip up all his clothes. Yeah, you know, are you following me? Are you following me? But you know, but you didn't see a family of 4 following him. So, I mean, I found that.
Yeah.
It's just like, you know.
I agree completely. Yeah.
I was going to say too, I thought it, because you get that the seed is planted very long ago that the dad is just not well. Like the dad is sick. He's coughing all the time, eventually coughing up blood. And then you're just kind of like, you know, sort of the inevitability of that character. Like it didn't shock me that the father was dying. I think the only piece that I felt bad for is the fact that the kid is just there. And I think it says like days go by that the kid's just there with this dead dad. And I was like, and like that hurt. But yeah, I agree. I wish there was more, I wish there was more heart. I wish there was more of the fact that the dad clearly loves the son, and I think they allude to this more in the film, that there's a playfulness to them and how they kind of joke with each other, and they kind of share these moments that are like, look at the world around you, it's caving in on you, but you still love each other and you are able to like be fun together, you know, as a father and a son should, right? So it missed those moments unfortunately in the book to share that, because the dad is like constantly on his, you know, seat, like what's going to happen, what's happening, you know.
I mean, I have to take my hats off to the father, because I think if that was my son, I'd probably beat the shit out of him after a while. Just shut up. For God's sake, just shut up.
Well, it's also, again, you can't stop a kid's inquisitive nature. I think
But even like when they're in trouble, I mean, he's like, "Oh, Papa," and he's like, "Shut up!" It's like,
Papa, 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 Papa.
Yeah, I did feel that way very much as well. It just seemed to be so contrived. It didn't feel real to me at all. I felt that it was so contrived that it was frustrating, and I think it could have been done much, much better. There was just this sickliness to it, really.
I also think he deliberately did that, because I think between that, the Papa, and between that and the talk to me, I'm talking to you. No, I'm not talking to you. Yes, you are. You're not talking. Like, it was like, it's that he deliberately, I think, uses that mechanics as it frustrated me, but it's almost like it puts you in that, like, just do it, just go, like, and it makes me want to say that, and I think that's an intentional thing, right? Because he's trying to get you to be like, shut up, kid, just follow your freaking dad, like, it's like an intentional thing, a mechanism.
But I do,
but it is contrived. It's like that method is contrived.
Well, I think if they had more personality, then I think those scenes might have played off a little bit better. I mean, in the movie, I think when we get to that, I mean, the movie, because you have actors and you do get more personality, because you get more expressions in the face and you get more personality, which plays. But reading from the book, I mean, I said before, I mean, there's very little description. I have to sit there and say where Cormac McCarthy does excel within The Road is the description of the landscape. And he really excels at that. He really makes you see the landscape and everything like that. But when it comes down to people, you're kind of stuck to stereotyping people. It's like, but I mean, I haven't read any of his other stuff. I've tried No Country for Old Men, couldn't get into it. I've seen the film, I thought the film was excellent. So I'm not quite sure if this is his normal style of writing. But I find that, with all his character, I mean, I said before, his characters are heroes and villains, and that's it. There's nothing, and there's no, someone who may be good but might be a little bit bad, or might be bad or going to be a little bit good, or none of that whatsoever. It's just black and white.
There's no ambiguity.
Yeah. But I mean, overall, I appreciate the book, and I like what it's trying to say, and I admire the artisticness of it. But it's overall, it kind of left me a bit cold. Overall,
those were the words I was going to use. You've beat me to it. I think that it could have been explored better, but he wanted to give a certain impression, and I think his emphasis of that impression left out a lot that we could have had that would have made it very different and more plausible, and would have made me engage with it better. That's how I feel personally about it. But another good work. Who are we? He got awards.
I think the ending, he could have left it where you don't know what happens to the kid, because it's meant to be very bleak, and so I don't know why he maybe felt like he needed to put a little tiny bow on the end of it, because it's meant to be very much like a bleak world, and this kid is supposed to be the hope, but we don't know what happens to him. And I've seen a lot of movies where you always get the happy ending, but it's the ones that leave you, like Blue Valentine, the ones that just leave you a little bit sad and broken are the ones that really have a deeper impact, if that's what you're going for. Requiem for a Dream, like that one just left me a little dead inside, and it was intentional. It wasn't meant to make me feel good. It was really meant to wake you up a little bit. I think if he had that sort of an ending, I think it would have definitely had a bigger impact, in my opinion.
Yes, I do. As the director Lars von Trier says, no more happy endings.
Yeah.
I think when you're in a post-apocalyptic situation, the father's died, the child is just wandering around on the beach 3 days after the father's died. It stands to reason that could be a very, very grim ending, but I think it would have worked better if it was grim.
Yeah. Because
the whole film was, really, if you think about it. I mean, you start off with this poor woman, and she decides to commit suicide. I mean, how is it actually ever going to be good? That's the thing, when something starts like that. But I did think the boy had, as Keith has mentioned, like an almost Christ-like feeling about him, particularly with regard to compassion and him wanting his father to wait for the old man, give the old man food. And when the man stole their things, he wanted to help that man regardless of his behaviour as a thief. So I do think that the father dying and the child surviving was something to do with the compassion the child had and the lack of compassion that the father had. It's just a little thing that I noticed.
Yeah.
And do
imagine
we ever,
if it would have... Oh, go ahead.
No, so do we even know why they were headed south? Was there any
I think so I wrote on one of the pages, I think it was 219. I think there's a memory that he has of him and his wife by the beach, and I think it triggers something in him, like that's a safe haven for him, or it's like he feels like if we go south it's maybe warmer and it might be safe for us to be there. It kind of is alluded in that, because there's also, like in the movie, which we'll talk about, there's that flash of them together by the beach, and it's sort of like a happier time. And he doesn't know what he's going to come up on. So the kid's like, is the water blue? I don't know. And I think there's a part of him like, hopefully it is. And then when he sees it, it's like, oh shit, and then let's jump in the water. Let's, come on. Or no, the kid goes, can I go in? And he's like, sure, and it's still like, oh, well,
Well, I can tell you, the Atlantic Ocean is never bloody blue. It doesn't matter what's happening, whether it's post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, exactly.
You only get blue water in, like, Bermuda.
Yeah. Oh.
I mean, you live in New York City, but it doesn't matter. Whether you're in Boston, Florida. I mean, that ocean is never blue.
It's gray, like the ash around the land of the show.
In England, I mean, it touches us here in England. When you go to Devon, it's just gray. You know what I mean? It's a rough-looking ocean. So,
can you imagine the ending of this if it was actually the family comes upon the dead boy and be like, oh, what happened to this poor kid? That would have been
I'd much have preferred it if
I thought maybe if he shot himself.
Oh yeah, because he still had the gun.
Shocking.
I forgot about that.
It's a shocking thing to think of, but you think what that child has actually been through that could have put him in a very, very dark place, and he seeing his father die and being there with the body for 3 days and just that murky, awful background to live with that, alone, it could easily have brought that child to thinking, right, well, Dad did show me actually how to use this gun, and I've got a feeling that this might be best. When I saw him putting the gun together and everything, I thought, now, how realistic are we being here? How much more can this child take without any moral support whatsoever, having been traumatized so many times along the way? How would that child really react to that? And would it be, are you carrying the fire? Oh, well, okay, then we'll go with you. It just didn't feel right at all for me. It didn't feel like it wasn't a happy ending story, I don't think. I think you could have put in as many happy endings as you like, but your own inner being was feeling that this was going to be a very, very sad and traumatic ending for that child.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, even if, let's say that the family he ends up with, the mother, father, and little boy.
Two kids.
The 2 kids, a son and a daughter, which is like the perfect nuclear family.
And a dog, you forgot. It's literally the picket fence, Yeah,
and he's even got like there you go. He's also got the dog sort of thing. And it's and even if they he goes with them, I mean, there's no food. Eventually, I mean, you're just prolonging.
He's the food. No, just kidding.
That's what they should do. The last scene should be him on a pit with an apple.
We're gonna have you for dinner. No, we're gonna have you for dinner.
Well, they'd already had a baby on a spit, and you think, oh my God, what on earth? What is this doing to that child? And when people are hanging from rafters, and they've still got their shoes on, and really and truthfully, the father was trying to protect his son, but he was also exposing himself to things that he needn't have done. And something like that, I would think, would be a natural thing for a father to do for their son. You don't think you're going to be pointing out, I don't think he should have done that. I don't know. There was just something very peculiar about it all.
Yeah. Well, I have to sit there and say another thing about the boy, going back to the biblical stance of the boy. He did have a sixth sense, which is kind of bizarre. It's like before he entered, he goes, no, I don't think this is a good idea. And he would see things before they actually before they panned out. And so I thought that was, I had to say in the book, and also in the film later on, but I'd sit there and say that was quite interesting. It's not explored, like nothing in this book is really explored, but he did have that sixth sense. When anything was about to happen, go, Papa, I don't think this is a good idea. Papa.
I think that was a default, though, because even he said that when they were going into his dad's place. And Dad, I don't think this is a good idea. Nothing bad happened. It was just, I think he just was like, I don't want to explore, Dad. I don't want to explore. I'm done. I'm good.
Else. Yeah.
I don't want to. Yeah, exactly. I don't want to see another dead body. Can we just?
Papa,
Papa, I don't want to go into the cellar with all the cannibals.
Oh yeah.
No, horrific. Really, it was horrific all round in many respects. And I mean, how many of us can actually work on something like that and know exactly what's going to happen? We can't, because it's all fiction, and this is what we have to remember. It's all fiction, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think that concludes our discussion of the book. What we're going to do is we'll be back after the commercial break.
Amazon is here to make your life easier. By just the tap of a button, you can turn the camera on your phone to your own personal shopping list. Introducing Flow. Just tap the camera icon onto the search bar, and you can find whatever it is you're looking for, right on Amazon. Faster than scanning a barcode and typing the name of your item into the search engine. Besides, searching with words is so 2012. Save time and money. Amazon, where shopping meets effortless.
Officials have declared a state of emergency.
What's happening?
There now. Not be contained.
Advise of a sudden drop in temperature. What you see is happening now.
How many people do you think are still alive?
In the world? Not very many. It's a treat for you.
It's bubbly.
We won't survive another winter here. You gotta keep moving. Head south to the coast.
Looks hungry. Why don't y'all come on the truck?
You look at him again, I'll shoot you in the head.
I don't think you killed a man in your life.
They're gonna catch up with us. They're gonna catch up with us, and they're going to kill us. Everything depends on reaching the coast. I told you I would do whatever it takes. Like what? Like what? Kill anyone who touches you, because that's my job. It's like it used to be when the sun came out.
We're gonna die.
They're not gonna quit. We are gonna survive this.
Back. Now we're going to discuss The Road, the film. And to start us off, John, would you like to start discussion on the film? What we would normally do at this point, we would have a comparison between we would normally give you a bit more in depth on the film, but since the film and the book are pretty much word for word, we will probably skip that and we'll just go to our lights, camera, action sequence. So John, please start us off.
Sure. One of the biggest changes I saw from the book to the movie is the contrast of what is versus what was, because the book is very, very ashy, barren, bleak version. Then the movie gives us glimpses into the world that they lived in before it died. It's both heartbreaking and terrifying because I think, to me, it's like when you get these glimpses of a life where the couple's happy, it's very sunny and very whimsical and stuff, and then you come back to this dead world. It's just sad. And I agree with, Cassandra had mentioned earlier that I think that is an element that worked, that I guess could have been more in the book, because in the book they didn't really I think you got maybe 2 or 3 instances of who the wife was, so you didn't even really get to know who she was as a character. You just got to know that she gave up,
I mean, I think Charlize Theron is a very good actress. I do appreciate her. I just think that she was a bit too pretty for the part. I would kind of much prefer her to be a bit more normal looking, not so perfectly coiffed.
Like more homely, or more
looking like she did when she did Monster, Aileen Wuornos. I mean, that was a phenomenal performance, wasn't it?
Yeah.
She's very, very versatile. In fact, the bit in the film that I will never forget, and I shouldn't be saying it perhaps now, is her bearing down, because that was the best acting in the whole film, I thought.
Yeah.
When she's giving birth,
she's phenomenal.
Because even like when she takes off. And I think the reason why she took off is because I think that once they had to axe that dining room table to make heat, I figured, well, I don't have a dining room table, so I'm just going to kill myself.
She's like, what are you going to do to my wardrobe? Screw this, I'm done.
It's like when she takes off her clothes and takes off her hat, it's like her hair is like perfect. And
I actually think it was the kid playing ball on the wall that sent her over the edge. She was like, I'm done. This kid, I'm over it.
He's drawing on the wall. You don't have any control over this bastard.
Yeah. Well, and isn't that the saddest line, which they do say in the book, is when she says, what was something about the day he was born was the day my heart broke, or something like that. It's just like, God, it's like, oh.
I mean, I have to sit there and say that I think that if I was in an apocalyptic situation and I'm living with my other half and they're optimistic all the time, that would get on my nerves as well. I mean, the thing is like, oh, we'll get through this.
Yeah.
And the thing is sometimes, it's quite good to have someone in a stressing situation being optimistic. It's a bit like, when a family member dies or something like that. And, it's quite nice that people go, so sorry, I'm here for you and stuff like this. But at the same time, you need that person behind you to be a bit more realistic. It's like, well, come on, whatever the situation is. And if the person's just optimistic all the time, is like, we're going to get through this. Sometimes that gets on your nerves worse than someone who's more of a realist, or, I'm not saying they have to be down all the time, but, I mean, but his character was very like, we'll get through this. Let's hold on. Let's just hold on. Let's get through this time. And I mean, I probably would have walked out without just walk out into the mist sort of thing. I mean, but to be honest, we're assuming that she's dead. She might still be alive. We don't know.
Yeah, that would be the great twist, wouldn't it? For a sequel. We're giving them good ideas here.
Yeah. Could you imagine if she shacked up with the family, the guy lost his wife and she comes, hey.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there you doing? I have 2 other kids to replace you.
I have to say that.
Well, it's good that we're laughing, isn't it, about a post-apocalyptic, very serious, quite, and we're finding the golden nuggets of laughter in it.
Yeah.
I mean, the kid, I have to sit there and say, I mean, I think he did a good job, but he did look like Damien Thorne from The Omen.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, he just, I mean, every time he appeared, I figured, Domino.
Oh, dear.
Like the sky rolls in gray. Oh wait, it already is gray. Never mind.
Oh dear me. Are you still on the film?
Yes. I think what's interesting too is with her character is when she decides to go, he wants to stay there. And I think what's interesting about that is so she leaves and just kind of leaves them. I wonder, well, you wanted to stay there. Why are you not still there? Something made you want to go. Because he was set on, no, please just stay here. Stay with us. Stay. And she's like, no, I'm not. I'm going to go. I'm just going to go. Like, I can't be here anymore. I just need to go and leave and just, take my chances. And it's it's weird that he just kind of did the same thing where eventually he's like, yeah, we need to take chances. We need to go.
Yeah. I wonder, we didn't know for sure, as you said, that she actually took her life. She just went off into the mist.
Yeah.
So anything's possible. Perhaps she could walk in from a mist into the sequel.
Yeah.
I mean, in the book, did we find out how did she just walk off? Or did she?
Yeah, I think in the book she actually stripped down completely. Like she just was like, I'm gonna go out into the world like as a baby. Like I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna freeze to death. She'll probably because it is cold. We know that it's freezing. So is it like she just said, screw it, I'm gonna just go out the way I came in, right, and just walk out and disappear into nothing.
So obviously. Theron had a no-tick clause in their own contract, apparently, but but I think I don't know. I think that I would, whether it's the book or the film in this instance, I would think it would be more dramatic if they woke up and she was just hanging or something like that. I think that would have been a bit more. I don't know. I guess I'm maybe putting myself in her shoes, and I can see myself. I'm a fan of assisted suicide. I think that when the time's coming up, I think you should have that choice. So
I agree.
Yeah.
But I don't think that personally that I would take off all my clothes and go, okay, I'm just gonna freeze to death or whatever happened to me.
No.
Or become,
and she also becomes like a little bit vicious, and I get it that she's done, right? And she's telling him I'm done, and he's trying to convince her to stay, but she becomes a little like biting, and in some ways, I think it's even more so in the book. It's less in the film because she does kind of hold him, and then she realizes what she's doing, and she's like, nope, I gotta go, I'm gonna leave.
That's it.
And in the book, she's just kind of like, I'm done. I don't love you. Or like she says something that's just sort of just like, get away from me. Just leave me alone.
Yes,
I'm getting out of here.
Yeah, but don't you sometimes have to do that? If you're in a relationship and you break up with someone, this is the ending of a relationship, and the person's still holding on. When love is gone, there's always one left holding on, and when that other person. You sometimes have to be a bit vicious to get away from that person because it's ended and that other person's holding on. And I think that's quite a natural response because, and you kind of got to harden up really quickly and you have to be cruel to be kind in this sense.
Yeah. So that way they can let you go too. Yeah, that's
precisely. True. And I think that, another thing is that, again, if the book gave a little bit more or if the movie gave a little bit more, a lot of stuff that we're talking about here in the movie is from the imagination of the scriptwriter, not so much from the book here as far as her scenes are concerned. And, the man, or Viggo Mortensen's character, he doesn't really have a plan on exactly what they're going to do, what are they going to do. Let's just stay here. Oh, we'll just stick together. We'll stick together. And maybe that, if we're going to fill in some blanks here, that maybe she's more of a realist. It's like, we can't just stay here. We're going to have to move somewhere. And maybe he's like going, no, we're not going. No, we're not going to. And maybe the catalyst of them actually leaving is that when she's disappeared and died, he's like, well, now he's deciding to go.
Yeah.
It's kind of a bit like, it's like, and if a relationship again, it's like, you break up with someone because they won't do anything. You're always going to, one day we'll do this, one day we'll do that, and then you break up with them, and they end up doing that stuff that they was, doing
never going to do. Yeah.
And maybe that was the reason why they decided to make a move. Then again, here's a basic example that we don't know how time has passed because they had the same boy character played by the same actor. You know, we don't know that she walked off and the next day they left. You know, we don't know that either.
Yeah. No.
Because there's no aging of the boy whatsoever. I mean, it's the same character. I don't even think we see him as a baby, do we?
I mean, I think the only indication of that is in the scene where she's leaving, his beard is shorter, but by the time we see him, it's longer. So, you know, but that could be weeks. So you don't know.
Yeah. No, time was a strange thing. And it's interesting. I think it was Andrei Tarkovsky, the director, said that it's like a mosaic. A movie is like a mosaic filled with time. And it just depends what is put into that time as to how we perceive it and how we feel about it. You know, and everybody's got these different feelings. Us talking here, you know, we're all feeling different things, and movies are fantastic for that reason, aren't they?
Yeah. I have to say, though, one thing, kudos to the film is it's filmed beautifully. It's very well filmed. And I have to say that even Viggo Mortensen's a good actor, you know, I'll give him that. But I have to say that the supporting characters, the ones who come in, Robert Duvall as playing Eli, I mean, he just lifts that whole movie to another dimension. And I have to say that the supporting characters really help a lot with this film. Though I do think Charlize Theron kind of, I think I know why that she's there, but in a way, she kind of took me out of the film a little bit when it kind of popped in for me personally. Yeah. You know, I don't know, you know, even when she's lying out there in the sun, you know, in her red sundress. She's hot.
She seems to do a lot of lounging because she was lounging there and then she was lounging in the car. And then
that's it. It was almost like, right, well, we'll give her a cameo role. Oh, well, will you do a couple of other scenes for us? Yes, if my eyes are closed, sort of thing. Yeah. It all seemed very, once again, I don't know, there was something about this all the way through. There was a similar thread for me that this was not real in any way, shape or form, and I prefer it when I watch a movie or read a book that I feel that it's so real that I'm there, I'm in it. But I did enjoy the film much more than the book, and I think those stark sepia landscapes really did draw me in. They were so beautiful. I really think the cinematography was very powerful, and the characters were sort of thrown into this wonderful cinematography. That's how it felt. Like, we've got this book thing still going on, but we've got this wonderful vista and these really, really haunting, desolate places, and that sepia feel. I thought it was wonderful. I really did.
Yeah, that's what I liked about the film the most.
Yeah, the threats of the trees falling and stuff, which was in the book, and we're able to adapt it. It was so well, executed with the sounds. It's almost as if the earth is groaning and releasing these trees, and then the fire when he wakes up and there's that huge.
That was amazing.
Fire. It was amazing. I wanted to know where they shot some of this because it was just so breathtaking to watch and saddening, obviously, but. It was just,
I do sit there and say, though, Viggo Mortensen, or the man's coughing he had selective coughing. I mean...
He what? Say again?
He had selective coughing.
What was that?
He was like comes up to the old man. Then he doesn't cough until the old man goes away, and then like...
I think it's just a nervous trigger.
And the old man, when he's given the tin and then he eats it and then brings it back up again straight away.
Oh, I know.
That made me laugh. But Eli, actually, there was a point in the book where there is no God and we're all his prophets. They actually didn't use that I could remember in the film. I think Eli said something along the lines of there's no humanity in humanity or something like that. And I was quite shocked because I thought one of the most profound things was there is no God and we're all his prophets. And I really feel that if they'd have had more of that throughout the book and the film, I would have engaged with it definitely much better, because at times of conflict and adversity, that is when we all of a sudden come out with profound things. And I wanted those profound things to be there, and they weren't.
I mean, I found another thing, going along back to the biblical thing that we mentioned in the book earlier. But I found it, Eli is a biblical name, which is quite interesting. And I also found, why did the boy start praying all of a sudden? I found that a bit odd. It's like,
are you talking about when he was like with the food and thanking for the food? And
yeah. With it's like, oh, okay. Well, he didn't pray before, but it's kind of strange that they put that into there because, I mean, the father doesn't give any kind of religious, accurate whatsoever about if he's religious or not. You don't know. Like most things, you don't know anything about him.
Well,
but
then he says to the kid basically that when I'm gone, you can talk to me. So that is sort of a little bit spiritually, because like he's trying to tell the kid, you're not alone. I'll always be with you, and that's referring to angelic.
You were asking about where the film was filmed. It was filmed in Pennsylvania, Louisiana, West Virginia, and Oregon.
Oh, interesting.
So that explains why it took them so long if they had to go all the way to Oregon.
Yeah. Well, that's actually west, not east. So I'm just going to say they needed to fix that little... Papa, we're west. Why are we west?
Papa.
Shut up. We're going to Portland.
And why didn't you have a compass?
Yeah.
I did sit there and say,
especially there's no sun. I thought about that too. How does he know where they're going? There's no sun.
Exactly. Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, I did think that as well. I didn't even like to say though, because it's like we're picking it to pieces. And really, I think the film was very, very good. It just had a very different feel to the book for me. But like I said, the characters, it was like somebody, when you have an aerial view of a doll's house and the adult is putting things in places and the child has got their vision and the adult has sort of imposed it upon the child. And that's how it felt for me with the characters. They were thrown into this amazing cinematography, but it was still that, oh, Papa, okay, yeah, okay. It was just too bland. The dialogue was really, really bland, and it could have been a wonderful dialogue because they had the whole of the film virtually alone, apart from these odd situations that were created. I don't know. There was something I think could have been explored and done better, personally.
Yeah.
I do think that if they had character names, I think sometimes character names paint a picture. Like I know this person who I hate named Barbara. So every time I think the name Barbara, I think of this really horrible person. So it paints
Is her name Barbara Thorndike? You know what that's from, right? Golden Girls.
But but there are certain names like like if his name was Eugene, you have a picture in your mind. Like if I say the word Eugene, you all of a sudden it picks up the picture of a nerd. I'm not saying that all Eugenes are nerds.
Well, how do you know that his name wasn't Boy? They're like, what's the point? He was born. Well, why do we? Let's call him Boy.
Boy, come over here, boy.
I know what you mean about names, though. In a way, they're very important. We've all got one, and I'm not a one for everything being as it should be and in little boxes, and I like a sort of a more radical approach to things. But I did find without the names, they were almost dehumanizing.
Well,
them as characters and people.
Well, it's almost. I mean, I also found a bit. See, they had the chance to actually come up with a name for any of them, but it's like when they go, man, who are you? He goes, my name is Eli. And the old man never goes, and you are? Or anything like that. It's just like, okay, we're scared over this issue. And I do think that when your parents, I mean, I know my parents, okay, they named me Keith, right? And of course. And I know that my parents, if they were angry with me, would go, Keith, Edward, Chawgo, get in here. They would use they would use the middle name as well. And your parents do use your name quite frequently. They don't just talk to you. They do use your name.
Yeah.
And I know people that my friend Vicky, who was in that dreadful car trip that I was with that I mentioned earlier, she's an only child, and her parents always say Victoria, Victoria, Victoria. it was always Victoria, even when they're having a normal conversation. So your parents would use your first name. So even if the man didn't have a name, you think that, he would mention the boy's name at some point. Even his parents do use their children's names, whether they're getting angry with them or a term of endearment, because they pick that name for you, and they pick that name for a reason why they named you.
Yeah.
And they make sure that they let you know by using it all the time. I give you this.
Unless, I think though, like if you go Midwest, because I know, my grandfather would call me boy. He would, he wouldn't say John, get over. It was like almost, I don't want to use, it's like a dominance, it's sort of a dominant term, like boy, get over here, or boy, move this, he wouldn't say, John, can you, like he would be like, boy, get over, and so maybe that was maybe a nod to, because Papa is also,
I can understand
like
Papa.
Midwest term for dad.
Yeah, but I can understand Papa, because to be honest, I've never called my mother Bonnie or called my father George or Corky or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever name that he was going as. But I've never. it's always mom or dad, or if I was angry with them, it'd be mother.
But mother. It's just an infliction of that, because mom and mama. Mama is a very Midwest term. It's not a like, I'm from Cali, but because I would always go see my grandparents, I, for some reason, call my mom Mama and I call my dad Papa. But if you ask like someone from Cali that is not has that, they would call it, because one time I said that and my friend was like, Mama, where did you get Mama? And I'm like, Mom, that's just how I talk to my mom, and that's not mom, not mother. I'm like, no, it's Mama to me. And I kind of, I think it's just phonetically, I think people, I hear that and I think Midwest, Papa, Midwest.
Well, from where I'm from, upstate New York,
the Papa thing wasn't. Sorry.
No, sorry, I said
I didn't get that. Sorry.
No, it's okay. In upstate New York, we start out calling our mothers and fathers mommy and daddy, and then it moves to mom to. And then as you get older, you move to mom and dad, unless your father's still paying your rent, then it's daddy. If you're.
If you've got a
pseudonym sugar daddy.
Cater and mater.
But as you were saying, Cassandra, before I interrupted you.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, I said sorry. What were you saying before I interrupted you?
Oh, don't worry. It's okay. I think I veered off then. I think I might have been going back to Charlize Theron for some reason. I've got to flick through the grey matter to find it again, though. So don't worry. We'll carry on with anything.
I also just think it's interesting they use other instigators to kind of move the story along, because the book has a lot of them, but like in the movie, they actually use like they wake up and there's these mob of people who are just like trailing the woods as if they're looking for a lost person, and like, oh God, we got to move. And it makes you like, oh, what's going on? What's going, and then the next scene is them starving to death and they're sitting in a drainage ditch, and you're like, oh, and then it's like they use different things within the movie, obviously, to move the plot along that they didn't in the book. So.
Yes, definitely. And of course, what we haven't discussed is one of these people went out into the woods and they're hiding, and he's having a wee, and then the father decides to threaten him with the gun, and of course the poor child is then whisked away and has a knife at his throat, and that must have been absolutely horrific for any child. They may go into some kind of complete trauma that you're unable to bring them out of. That's the thing. And for him to shoot him, and then all the dead man's blood is all over the child's face and head. The impact of that scene was quite powerful, I thought. And, the father, give him his due, he was a total protector without any shadow of a doubt, and there wasn't any room for negotiation at all. If something like that was going to happen, he was going to kill someone because of his child. So, but that with the dead man's blood all over the child's face and in his hair, and then he took him to wash him. I felt then that was profound and definitely probably would have happened in a post-apocalyptic situation, because their feelings and their emotions are always heightened, aren't they? And that protective fight or flight syndrome is there most of the time. You're having to look behind, side to side, everywhere. And I think the boy did become very adept, because I think in the film, when the guy had gone off with all the gear, the father's in the water, the child's been ill and he's resting, and all of a sudden everything around the child is gone because he's asleep, and all of their things have gone, and their cart, clothes, everything. So and I do remember the boy saying, there's a tiny little piece of sand and it's in some kind of shape, and that's the shape that comes out of the cart when we're walking with it. So he's getting this really adept personality towards the end of this film, where he is actually becoming more astute than the father. And I thought that was particularly interesting. As the father was diminishing and dying, the child seemed to be getting this resurgence of wanting to survive. And knowing how to do it, and like the father could go now because he's taught him everything.
Yeah, the one scene that was missing that I really would have liked to seen in that is when he goes and gets on the rig and like gets on there and is getting supplies. I kind of really would have loved to seen that, because it seems really intense, and I couldn't even imagine Gavin to do that. No, it was very, very profound.
I also thought they missed a trick with the scene that you were talking about, the first encounter with other survivors. And because in the book, I'd sit there and say the book did that really, really well, build the tension there. You got some of the tension in the film, but in the book you get the tension. And then when he shoots him, I mean, the boy has like brain matter and everything. Hair, and the father's taking out the brain matter in his hair and stuff like this. In the film, I think he had a little bit of blood on him, and he had blood in his hair and stuff like that. I think that if he was blonde like he's supposed to be in the book, and instead of looking like Thorne, a bit more angelic looking, that I think the book did that scene a little bit better than the film in that instance. I think the film does everything else, but in that one instance there, when he gets shot and you read about the brain matter and everything like that, I'm like, oh God, I'm like, oh. So now in the film I saw it, and it's like, oh, that's horrible. In the book I went, ew, that's good.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that's gross.
There was the other bit where there was some entrails and a head had been chopped about away from it, and the torso was hanging about underneath a vehicle, I think. And I actually didn't realise that was there until I watched it the second time. I'll be honest, I've done twice with the film, but I wouldn't do twice with the book. There were some quite horrific things in it. But how horrific would it be? You know, we can pontificate all we like. How horrific would it be if we were in a post-apocalyptic situation? I mean, a lot of people haven't had hard lives, and they wouldn't know what to do, where to go, or anything. They'd be looking for, I want to watch Oprah, pass me the chocolates. You know, what can we actually say? You know, I think it's quite brave that people do these things, because they're taking a huge risk with how people are going to react to it. And for that alone, I would say, well, good on you, Cormac, and thank you, John Hallicoat, because without these people, we wouldn't have this to refer to. And I still do believe very wholeheartedly that we are given these insights, and they are all part of a trail of synchronicity, and they're leading us to face what could be before us, and for that we just have to thank them, really.
Well, especially the way things are going nowadays in the world.
Exactly. I think, I mean, if I flick back to Independence Day, I remember coming out of the film and thinking, well, hang on a minute, I know this is a message. I went in there feeling it was a message, and I came out knowing it was. You know, we're living in very, very dark times, and anything is possible. I think absolutely anything. But we've got psychopaths ruling the world virtually now. So you know, it's frightening. It's frightening.
It's interesting because going back to the genre with World War Z, the difference with that book versus a film, which it missed it completely. The mark is the explanation as to how everything just sort of collapses is because we have become so ingrained in the current modern world and how we survive. And so when everything kind of shuts down, when the military fails, then we have to defend ourselves. And then we are not taught how to defend ourselves. We're taught to send emails and text messages. And, and so when all of that collapses, all of that is unimportant anymore. So if we lose our basic skills, our basic ability to defend ourselves and protect ourselves and to nourish ourselves, then we will perish, and so they kind of miss that mark within that book, but it's also kind of resonates with this film is like things that he's teaching his son to collect the gas and the oil in order to then make the little makeshift lantern and all those little things. It's like, you might seem unimportant, but it's like, take note, folks, take note. I forget, like someone had posted a video on BuzzFeed, and it was like how to open a can on like the sidewalk or stone because the top seal is very fragile. So if you just scrape it back and forth, like the top will come off. And I was like, I'm going to remember that.
I mean, we are.
No, it was. I think it was quite profound. The more I think about it and the more I talk about it, I think it definitely gave everybody something. And it may not have been perfect, but it was still delivering a loud message. And that's what cinema does, isn't it?
I mean, we are living in a time that they want to put, in England anyway, they want to put warning stickers on how to cut an avocado because people don't know how to open an avocado.
Just stop.
No, I'm not kidding, Too many people are cutting an avocado because of the pit. So then they want to come out like, so there's the thing about whether the EU should do like how to cut open an avocado because people can't see
Do just people forget not to cut with or against something? Like,
I mean, can we unscrew the top of some caviar? Who knows?
Well, I think that nowadays also I don't think we're a heavy thinking nation. I was watching this documentary the other day about the young today, about what's going to happen to them when they get older, and at the moment they don't know the word no, and they don't know they're brought up nowadays to know that whatever they want they will get, and everything instant gratification, whether it's like and they measure their lives about how many likes they get, how many times their posts are shared, and that shows how the importance of their lives are, and that's how they value their lives, and about what's going to happen to them when they get out into the real world. Now, throw in this apocalyptic thing. I'm just kind of wondering, like, how are they going to react? I mean, most of them don't know how, and they buy their food in the supermarket, but most people don't even know anything about how those animals are killed or where that meat comes from or how it's prepared and what needs to be done with the meat. And as soon as you tell them that, I'm vegetarian, well, it's like, I mean, what did you think happened? You know what I mean? I remember sitting with the girls at work, and I grew up on a farm sort of thing, and and a friend of mine, Nick, came into the office and he was talking about his horse, and that his girlfriend has this horse that they bought, and the horse has a gummy leg on it, and I go, what do you do? She goes, well, we can't be ridden, so basically we spend all this money feeding the horse. And they go, why? What would you do? I go, well, if it was a horse back home, we shoot it.
Yeah, you put it down.
You put it down. And he goes, well, why do you do that? I go, why would you do that? I go, well, that's what you do on a farm. I go, when we had cows, when the cows were ready to be butchered, we took an air gun and we air gunned them in the head. He goes, oh, what's that? And I explained what the air gun does. And he said, oh, that's horrible. I go, well, it's better than what we used to do before. When I go, that's from 76 onwards. Before 76, we used to take a sledgehammer and slam them in the head with it.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, my God.
And then same thing with like pigs, you just drain them too, which is like even more horrible. It's like.
And pigs, they get depressed, don't they? It's well known that pigs are the most depressing animals. They get so depressed.
And he's like going, oh my God, that's really horrible. How can you do something? I go, you're a meat eater. I go, you buy steaks and stuff. I go, how do you think it's done? He goes, well, I just think they, I go, what? Did you think they, just put him in, gave him a chemical shower somewhere? I go, there's always pain and death. I go, this is what happens. And he was like, oh, I don't think I could ever do that. I don't think I could ever do that. And the girls go, oh, God, that's horrible. I don't know if I can do that. It's like, well, if something like this in an apocalyptic world happened, you're going to have to be forced to do stuff like that.
Isn't it reflective, though, of this movie and how people, if you notice that the group in the movie getting off the truck, one guy has his leg gone. So you can insinuate either he lost it because of an accident or he just got really hungry.
Yeah.
And chopped it off.
Well, they're giving up body parts to feed to the others.
Exactly. So you kind of have to say to yourself how interesting that they would reflect on that, like, oh, how cruel. And then it's like, yeah, but that's how they're surviving.
Yes.
And we kind of do the same thing to animals. We butcher them and slaughter them to make food for ourselves. So,
well, that brings me to the dog scenario, that the dog pops up later on. And to be honest, if we're in this kind of situation, I hate to say it, but if I got hungry enough, I'm afraid Boo, my cat, would probably be on the menu eventually. And I know that's a horrible thing to say, but when it comes to the point, I'm not going to say, I probably end up eating Isaac before I eat Boo, to be honest with you. But
poor Isaac.
Guess what podcast?
You know what's going to happen? This is going to go out and say those people, keep away from them. They're going to eat you.
Don't move by them. Your neighbors will eat you alive.
But if you think about it, it's like if you're stuck in, and let's say you've gone 3 weeks without food, but you have a pet.
Yeah, I could never. That's just me. I could never kill my cats. To the point where
now Blaze must be hearing what we're saying because he's starting to growl. So.
He's like, "What did you say? Eat me? No, you're not."
But after they say that, it really is something that you might consider. I'm not sitting there saying that you would, that you would do it. I'm saying, but you probably end up if you get hungry enough. Well,
the thing is, I think the dog would eat me.
Well, that's true. You find that with people who have cats, for instance, and let's say the old lady dies, and then they finally find the lady, and basically the cats have used her as a smorgasbord because the lady died. They had nothing to eat, so they ate. The house that I had in Kentish Town that I had with my ex, we bought the house, and the reason why we got it cheaper because he died in the house. But what was quite nice about it that his family never used to come and kind of lived as a loner. But what was quite nice about his death, basically, is that when he died, his dog died basically the same time. So basically, they found the dog and him together, dead together.
Oh, that's nice.
And that's kind of like the perfect scenario. But unfortunately, that's not, if anything like this happens, that's not really what's going to happen, is it? It's like,
No, that's right.
One of you is going to survive, and the other one's going to be feeding off you.
It takes courage for you to also make that decision to say, okay, you don't want to eat your pet or eat someone, so you either have to kill yourself or kill that, and that's either way it's a horrible scenario to think about.
Well,
the thing is, what the survival instinct is still there, but I don't think it is for everyone. I think the post-apocalyptic situation is something that we can only imagine, and even if we start out wanting to survive, it may mean that we can't do that, and on a moral level, I think there would be so many things crossing your mind and confusing you that I think suicide for a lot of people would feel the easiest option. So when Charlize Theron, we are led to believe, took her life, I think it was good that they did have that there, because they're saying, well, look, this is something that courts you all your life, and you have that option if you need to do it. In a way, all in all, with our discussions and everything, I think it was a very worthwhile book and film. And, we're going out with sounding like people who eat animals. That's the only thing that's bothering me.
Yeah. It's sad because I feel like in the movie, too, they do this a few times where the dad has to put the gun to his son's head. And
oh gosh, yeah.
That wasn't. I didn't recognize it in the novel, it as prominent because just the scene where they're in that house and those people are coming back and you know who they are and you know what they are, and he's sitting there like just sit here, it's okay, and he's talking them through like, I'm about to kill you because I don't want you to have to go through this. It's just that's heartbreaking.
I have to say in the film, I had a problem with that whole cannibals in the basement sequence. And I think the reason why I had a problem with it is, first of all, I think that if you got livestock in your basement, whether they're human or not, you're going to keep them well fed. They were quite skinny and looked like they were starving. And to be honest, if this is what you're going to keep them well fed and you might have them cleaned up. And another thing is when they're running through the house, you got to remember they're in this apocalyptic time that they're portraying in this film. I mean, there's no other sound. There's no radios. There's no television. There's no electronic silence. There's no sound. And then running through the house, and then them being upstairs and him saying all those things, you're thinking, how come no one else is hearing this?
Hearing them, yeah. And I think the man, the father was actually, he had quite a large crack of the door open, and he was just looking through the crack down at these people. And if they'd have just glanced up, they'd have seen all of his face. It didn't ring true, that piece at all. These things where they had these, we know they were going to encounter things along the way, but each encounter was lacking in some way to make you feel really frightened or that this was real. You know, sometimes when you watch a film, you really think you're there, you're in it, and it's making you cross your legs and swallow, and you feel really, really overwhelmed by what you're watching. And these situations, for some reason, they didn't do that for me. They just didn't do it. And it felt like they hadn't been thought out well. And I could understand what you said, Keith, about the people in the cellar, because it I don't know, and very strange,
It's almost done be like, well, we want to make this more frightening, so if we make them more skeletal and give them this,
people under the stairs look.
Yeah, and give them that concentration camp kind of look that they're undernourished and underfed and everything like that, that it will give it a more of a scary. But I think it would be more scary if they were like quite well fed, but they had body parts missing. It was, they're the lambs for the slaughter.
Yes, yeah.
And
I think if there's no
they were
food
caring for them.
if they had food, they would eat it for themselves. That's also a sort of level of, you wouldn't feed them just to feed them because you're going to eat them.
No,
but find a can of peaches, you're going to eat it, and then you're going to eat them.
No, but what you would do though, you wouldn't sustain them. I mean, you keep them sustained, but you want to keep them quite fattened up a little bit, because the thing is, because if they're really skinny, like the really skinny guy crawling around on there with all skin and bones, what are you going to eat? It's going to be like eating frog legs. It's not going to fill your meal time, is it?
That would have been even more insidious, as if they actually kill someone and force you to eat them, because
I imagine
that is fattening them up,
But I think that's probably what they would have done. The thing is, they might have been eating the bones off the meat, but they might have been feeding them the offal.
Yeah.
I know that's horrible.
And we're there.
We've gone deeper and deeper and deeper. I feel like I'm in the blooming down in the cellar now. All the lights are off here, and I've just got the torch, and it's like, well, what are you doing? What are you waiting for?
Now you know how my brain works. Well,
I think we knew. Well, it was good. Anyway, I've really enjoyed the podcast. It's great.
Yeah. One thing I do want to say, one more thing I want to say about the movie, though. There was a level of hope with the beetle. I want to mention that. When he opens and the beetle goes flying off.
Oh, the little beetle that flew off, yes.
Yeah. Which means that that life might be rebuilding itself. I quite like that.
Yeah. Or surviving somewhere,
Yeah, that was a little symbol of hope, wasn't it?
So to wrap up our podcast, overall, Cassandra, how did you feel about the book and the film altogether?
The book and the film altogether. Well, now I've had long conversation with you and John, probably have nightmares all week, but
that's our goal.
But no, actually, I give credit where credit's due. It was a good book. I wouldn't read it twice. The film I've watched twice. I may even watch it again. So all in all, I would say film 9 out of 10, book 7.
And yourself, John?
Yeah, I mean, I selected this for obviously a few reasons, but I definitely think it's something that we talked about this before, dipping your toe into new pools of experiences. And I think if you haven't read something like this, it's worthwhile to read. It's the same thing, like, you know, I love different types of genres of writing. So whether it's, you know, science fiction or memoir or whatever, you know, poetry, for example, if you haven't read any poetry, I highly suggest you pick up Cassandra's book. But it's one of these things where if you haven't tried or haven't had an experience of it, it's worth giving it a shot just to open your horizon to something. And yeah.
Sure.
I think, personally, the book, I think if you're looking for an apocalyptic novel, I think that you should give this a try because there is nothing else like that out there. Mostly apocalyptic novels are zombie, and there's a lot of bad zombie novels out there. And I think this one's more based in a form of realism. I would give the book I'd probably give the book 8 out of 10 overall. There's something that I wouldn't have chosen if it wasn't for John's recommendation. I'm glad I read it. I don't know if I'd read it again, but it does stay with me. I still have a lot of imagery still running around in my head from the book. And the film, I probably give that 8 out of 10 as well. Overall, I think it's a good film. It's beautiful to look at. And it's almost a masterclass about how to take a book and to adapt it into a successful screen production of it. So overall,
I agree.
Yeah, enjoy both. Now, before we let you go, I'll just letting you know that Cassandra's book, The Alibi Room, is out on Amazon and Lulu. And you can follow the links to that on our Facebook page, which is www.facebook.literarylicencepodcast, or through our website, www.mbliterary.com, the literary podcast, or on Twitter, which is Sorry.
Lit Pod.
Lock Pod. And if you want to make sure that you do follow Cassandra on her YouTube page, which is www.youtube.com/Cassandra Swan. And we'll give you those links. And you can see her amazing work on Hammer and also the pocket-sized Wreath also. Next month, we will be discussing A Christmas Story, which is based on the book In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash by Jean Shepherd. And we would like to thank Cassandra Swan. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And John Wilson.
Thank you.
And myself, Keith. And remember, the road is always barren.
Do it.
You ain't gotta do this to me. You ain't gotta do me like this.
You don't mind doing it to us?
I'm begging, please.
Papa!
Listen to the boy, man. My head's starving. I've done the same thing. But die out here. I'm gonna die out here, man.
I'm gonna leave you just the way you left us.
From the dusty mesa, her looming shadow grows, hidden in the branches of the poison creosote. She twines her spines up slowly towards the boiling sun, and when I touched her skin, my fingers ran blood.
You one of the good guys?
I'm one of the good guys. Why don't you put that pistol away?
I'm not supposed to let anyone take it from me, no matter what.
I don't want your pistol, I just don't want you pointing at me.
In the hushing dusk under a swollen silver moon, I came walking with the wind to watch the cactus bloom. A strange wonder haunted me, the looming shadows dance. I fell down to the thorny brush and felt a trembling hand.
So you got two choices here. You can stay here with your papa, or you can go with me. If you stay here, you need to keep off the road.
Carrying the fire?
What?
Carrying the fire.
You're kind of weirded out, aren't you, kid?
Well, are you?
Yeah, I'm carrying the fire.
I can come with you.
Yes, you can.